median age in Uganda is 17, in Nairobi is 19. The other African states that are much lower. And it's a global prerogative of what we need to do now to future-proof our cities, because 65 to 70% of that population will be in the cities. You know, will be in Nairobi, Mombasa, Kigali, Lusaka, Kampala. That we have leaders in government, but in industry, you know, whatever it is, in the private sector, in academia, really must dedicate more than a quarter of their time in thinking about that, because the future will not plan itself. We have a great opportunity because this young population is extremely connected. They're extremely defiant. They're go-getters. They're wired. They have the same tools that enabled Europe or enabled the US. Or these are the economies to make that leap. The tools are in their hands. What they need to do as leaders is to equip them. Many years ago, in the ancient history, when I was in Parliament, actually it's just 10 years ago, 2015, I had a chance to visit Silicon Valley, and I was in San Francisco. There was a place called the Institute for the Future. Very nice name, TIFF. And I was on a panel. And during that discussion, there's a lady, I forget her name, but she was very exuberant. Yeah, she was from Mexico. And had colleagues also from, you know, other parts, even within Latin America. And she had started a digital political party, yeah, that was built on social media. And they agreed that anyone elected would then do what the people, you know, online are saying that they need to do. Of course, they didn't succeed because they worked that way. But she asked a very pointed question. And she asked me, Sakaja, how is it that we're seeing more substantive and meaningful innovation coming from Africa than what we are seeing coming from Europe and the Americas? And it took me a while, you know, just 10 minutes to really grasp what she was asking. You know, that's the time when there was all, you know, the rage around M-Pesa, about what cellular was doing in Nigeria, connecting farmers to the electronic wallet, what is happening in South Africa, the startup revolution, into Tunisia and all that. And, you know, actually the world has changed. Global village, we all say that, but it truly is now. Driven by technology, powered by information, but the tools for development are available to everyone. Unlike the Industrial Revolution, where we would not have the energy that would be used to power plants in Europe, or the steel, or the hard raw materials, the raw materials for this revolution are available. And so the young person in Kigali or in Nairobi has the exact same coding language and access that the young person in San Francisco has. But the need is different. And necessity is the mother of invention. And so while your young people might be innovating for, you know, shopping lines and, you know, easier things because you've sorted out all of the basic challenges, our young people are connecting families, are setting up schools, connecting people to water, money transfer, and all of that. And I told her, hold your horses. I cannot tell what will happen 10 years from now. The same way at that point, no one could tell what 10 years before, no one could have told where we would be in 2050. And so anybody who would pose it to us today that the next day is a false prophet and should be shown, we cannot guess what is going to happen. What we need to do is to give the tools to a larger, you know, number of our young people. You remember in Konza when I came around the same time, 2014, 15, 16, and we did a competition for coding. And so myself and a colleague, actually it was a bit later because we were in the Senate at that time, and a colleague of mine who's now the governor of Makoini, decided to sponsor young people from our cities. And part of those we sponsored, I remember, was a young man who was 6 years old at that time. Small boy, is now around 11. he met a computer for the first time at Konza. He had never seen a computer. And he got into the training for a week. This is a mouse, this is how you start, and they taught you how to code. He emerged the best of all of those who've been doing it in private schools. He was from a low-income neighborhood, but he was the best. And that inspired me, and I'm very happy this year he's going to Japan. Yeah, we had agreed with Ikta and yourselves. He must take that boy to Japan. His dad now works for me, so there's accountability. But I just thought that if this has happened at a chance meeting where this kid has been given these two, then what would happen if we cast the net wider and allow more of our young people in the continent to have the same tools, to have internet access, to have connectivity, to have devices? Then their imagination supersedes the ceiling that had been set. Many of us, or those a bit older, your imagination was limited by your teacher's imagination. Your worldview was limited by what your teacher knew, also, or what the textbook or the curriculum was. Today, you cannot play that game with our kids. And so these are very timely discussion when we talk about artificial intelligence. Today, I want to emphatically say that AI and technology matters more than it has ever been before. And we need to do three things, all at the same time. One, to think carefully about what we want to do and to be as a continent. To figure out what technology is useful for getting there, what specific interventions would be needed, and that we can then be held to account as governments, as private sector, as development partners. And then to solve the problems of investment, information, and governance that then will remain. And today I want to reflect with you. First, on the opportunities that technology and AI bring us, and then second, on the governance challenges that we need to solve if we're to make the most out of these opportunities that are right before us. It's like that penalty you've been given and there's no goalkeeper. No one is best placed to take advantage of this time and this season than the African continent. The opportunities, again, back in the same ancient past, I remember colleagues and I at the Senate of Kenya wrote the startup bill of 2021 for startups. We intended to create incubators to de-risk investments to startups, because there's no government on this continent that can fund startups. We can't. You can't have a budget item at the Ministry of ICT to fund startups at whatever stage until they get to unicorn. You cannot. But you can de-risk the investors who want to put in money into it. Wanted to supply incentives to them within the Republic of Kenya, the incentives they so badly needed, and to ease their registration and their acknowledgement as tech startups. And I remember at that time there was a big debate that what is a startup? If I open a shop for Mandazi outside here and I've started up a shop, is it a startup? I said, no, let's limit it to rapidly scalable, technology-driven interventions that have potential to create a lot of jobs. And even at that time, I remember, we could see how important a thriving tech sector could be for our country's growth and development. I love Nigerians. Do you have any Nigerians here today? I love Nigerians. If they're not here, I'm sure they're coming. Because they never let an opportunity pass them by. In that team was some Nigerian, leaders and leaders, because we did all our meetings online. That didn't pass. It passed the Senate, but the timelines, got into election cycle. In Kenya, we're always in an election cycle. And so I got news that under the office of President Buhari, there's a startup act that has been set up and an authority. It was the one I drafted. The startup act of Nigeria was drafted by the governor of Nairobi, and we don't have one in Nairobi. But that is the beauty of our continent. And now they're taking advantage of it. They have a huge market of 180. Here in East Africa, we compete with a few 50 billion people, a few in Uganda, a few in Tanzania. We put so much barriers, you can't get to Rwanda. Yet, they have one market of 180. If you're an investor, where would you put your money? We have Ethiopia just here, and I'm so happy to see a team from Ethiopia. We must remove those barriers. Already they don't exist online. I don't know why they should exist offline. Because these are imaginary lines, which were drawn by colonialists, not by us. I have relatives in Uganda, you know. We have relatives in Tanzania. They walk freely. President Samia Suluhu gave a very vivid description when she gave her first opening remarks at the Parliament of Kenya. And she asked these borders, annually, hundreds and thousands of tourists come to Kenya and Tanzania to observe the wilderness migration. When they cross the margin of the Burundi states, don't pass, and they removed the physical of the Burundi states, don't pass, and they removed the physical mental barrier, remained, and we're still stuck. Remained, and we're still stuck ourselves for us to take advantage of what we're talking about. On anything we could have imagined, there's now public free AI models to do all sorts of mundane tasks. In just the last couple of years, we've seen some very interesting results in disease diagnosis, in drug discovery, in the ease with which we can by natural language interfaces, and there's much, much more to come. As I said, we cannot claim to prophesy the future of this technology, but we know what we must do. And whenever the future is uncertain, I always tell PG and my colleagues, go as far as you can see. You will see further. But don't refuse to move because you can't see the whole way. Go until where you can see, and then look. And that's the attitude that we need in certain times. Well, what remains is us to make it work for the good of these people that's coming. So now let me turn to governance, because I just wanted to I was asked to speak about the paradox of digital progress. Investment in technology often means that our services are quicker, corruption is harder, accountability is easier. If you pay, and we are a good example as Nairobi, if you pay using our county USSD, possibly one of the very few ways you can pay, we are completely cashless. Or our Nairobi Pay website, for example, it's much easier to track an account for payments and to keep everyone honest. And those, of course, resistance. But because of our insistence, I remember January this year, the 1st of January, I was at City Hall, when everyone was celebrating the new year. And we had a challenge in moving business permit. Everyone had their tafs. And you know those who run cities, you have your people who do licensing, they want to do it as of collecting land rates. A customer service center was set up. Of use of technology, we were able to raise the highest revenue in the history of Nairobi County, 12.8 billion shillings. And this year, Deputy Governor and the team, we must hit 20 billion using the same technology. And it's going to happen, and we must do it. With the possibility. Thank you. And you see, once we've done that also, we must be very accountable. This generation also requires radical transparency. Every shilling must count. You must be able to show that because of embracing technology, we'll be able to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things. Possibility goes with risk. We need to think very hard, and I'm glad we made strides on the continent on cybersecurity. Your data needs to remain secure and private. Its use must be proportionate and accountable. We're able to get so much information. I'm currently on a data track somewhere, and just the potential of the kind of data that we collect on very mundane things. The ladies in the market paying the cess, the number of vehicles that have passed this road today, who've registered, for this unified business permit, the rate spares who defaulted. We have data we collect every day. This is part of the technology we use to feed our children in Nairobi. Developed by Nairobians, young people, tap to it. Smart device that every child in Nairobi is wearing to school. We're now feeding 360,000 children at 5 shillings every single day, and we track it. We know who's come to school, who's not come to school, who has a dietary restriction, how the performance is matching the feeding. All this data must be protected and must be used prudently. Digital government promises to be transformative, and we can also see it has the potential to be disastrous in the same measure. It's up to us, really, to choose. And that's the paradox. Progress means failure if not handled by the right people, in the right manner, with the right controls. So privacy, of course, is a fundamental concern in the digital era, as anyone whose personal information has been leaked or has been in danger of leaking will know. Just to make things vivid, in the last few years, and, Kenya is an example of what works and what doesn't work. And we have to be an example, because we learn, and that's what happens, as you lead. We've seen leaks of sensitive data, a number of government bodies, followed recently by concerns about the safety of personal communication, and we keep strengthening our systems. We're not shy to say what has not worked. We are vulnerable enough to say, look, yes, we have a problem there. This is what we've done to strengthen it, and I'm glad with the work Konza is doing, and the ministry, please pass our regards to the PS, is really being supportive. And you have to have that level of vulnerability as government or as leadership to then take advantage of that tech ecosystem that is around you. Otherwise, if you try to make it look like you're everything figured out, soon everyone else will realize that you're bluffing, and it will come to light. At both national level and sub-national levels, we have representatives from cities. We'll have to work through this the best way we can, and let us learn from each other. The quicker we learn that we're not competing against each other within the continent, that what is stacked against us is outside the continent of Africa, that there's more that unites us than what divides us, then everyone will realize that you are forced to rebel. Otherwise, we've created small little playgrounds for everyone to come in the middle and keep us not united. We need to establish together robust legal frameworks and regulations to protect your privacy and the privacy of our people and personal data. And this means giving individuals control over their data. It is theirs. We're just custodians. You must give them control over that data, informed consent for collection and processing, and carry them along to know what you're doing with that data. You don't lose. Back in the day, government has changed. Back in the day, government, in Kenya we call it serikali. Serikali means government. But we always used to say sirikali. Sirikali means, who can translate that for me? Sirikali means a serious secret, or a tough secret, top secret. That won't fly with Gen Z. No, with millennials. This sirikali attitude doesn't cut it in today's day of AI. And the more you sirikali your government, the more they will show you how vulnerable you are. Just for fun. But just because they can. I once did a hackathon in Harlem government. I was shocked. They said the only place they couldn't penetrate was ABSA, actually. Maybe it was because of you, I don't know. But the only institution they couldn't penetrate from Hurlingham, which is just near here, to Yaya Center, was Barclays Bank. And it's because I didn't give them the time. They said, if you give us 1 week though, we'll hack it. So if you continue with Sirikali, you will be sure. It means giving, the more thoroughly we digitize services as well, the more that we and other African countries need to think very hard and develop our own data protection laws. And for those that don't have data protection laws, we as Kenya, the Republic of Kenya, are very happy to share what we have. Shakespeare says, truly wise is he who learns from another's mishap. That's in the Hamlet. You don't have to make the same mistakes. We don't. Yeah. Let us learn from each other. This worked in Nairobi, this didn't work. You do it better. This worked in Kigali, this didn't work. This worked in Bujumbura, sort it out. Yeah, as we partner. And I'm very confident this is the best platform. Now I've spoken for long, and I will skip many paragraphs of my speech. Our own data handling cultures and practices and balance between the need for data-driven governance and private rights must be as important as the development of the solutions. It is not either. One should not move faster than the other. That's how you build trust. In technology, you have to create trust. Actually, the reason why, and I don't know if these are giveaway, but the reason why Kenya has made such strides in technology adaptation, for any investor will tell you that a new product is accepted very easily in Kenya. The adaptation and acceptability is high. Do you know why it is? Who knows? Let me see. Konza, do you know why? I don't want you to guess, because our smart city can never be wrong. Let me tell you why. It's because for majority of Kenyans, their first interaction with technology and a technology process on their phones was sending money. Now, once you trust technology with money, that I have just pressed this and my grandmother is going to get something in the village, what would you trust technology with? Now, that has created that kind of adaptability in our country. And you need to have trust experience as you deploy technology in your countries. You need to have that. So, as you prioritize cybersecurity to protect infrastructure, services, and data, we need to also temper it with trust experiments, with doing it in an incremental way with our people. A clear example of this, and a concrete example, is a report in May 2020 last year of substantial unauthorized entry by a state actor into Kenya's finance and foreign affairs ministries. I think all of us saw the case was widely reported, but it then sank quietly without trace. I mentioned it often because it nicely illustrates the importance of government. Finally, equity. We must prioritize equity and inclusivity to avoid widening present inequalities. The improper use and deployment of AI technologies and a lot of text can actually increase disparities. It can actually increase inequalities. The digital divide, in particular, the wide and wide inequality to access. An example I gave you of the young boy from Pandora, who just got a chance. How many around there still have a chance? Or they have that opportunity. Let's not have others. Let's leave no one behind. Let's not have others then advance within our cities. Our cities are dynamic and complex and different classes of society. Let us democratize and have equity and inclusivity in the deployment of this. We often forget that the digital technologies we're pushing to ease the work of government and the private sector are not equally legible or usable by every part of the population. Consider something as ubiquitous as the smartphone or the laptop, and making basic acts of citizenship dependent on them runs this real risk of creating unequal forms of citizenship. So let's simplify to the most available entry point in terms of hardware, or interaction points or hubs. And I'm glad that the government of Kenya is actually setting up these hubs in every single ward, the lowest level of representation, that anyone then can access. Anyone can access and stream. That process is ongoing in terms of setting up the infrastructure. The money has been distributed through members of parliament, through CDF. We have a constituency development fund. And as I set that up, then democratize and open up that market. Care and thought is required because, in my view, it's a seriously underestimated problem. Many of us are very happy to run fast with the early adapters. But unlike many other examples, many would not be happy to catch up, and they will distrust those systems if they feel that it is a specific category of the population that is being enabled. In fact, we will create an us versus them complex, which will be very dangerous for your cities. We must equally double down on the work we're doing to bridge that skills gap by providing training and capacity building programs that empower everyone everywhere to effectively participate in the digital economy and governance processes. More recently, the integration of artificial intelligence services and automation in digital governance then introduces ethical considerations. We must ensure that these systems are developed ethically and are deployed ethically, considering issues such as algorithmic bias, transparency, and accountability. We need to think hard. We need to make sure that AI decisions align with our African values, with our societal values, and rights, and meet our real needs. Can I give you a concrete example? There was some debate a while ago here about the training of language models by a huge industry leader in Kenya. It's a global industry leader. Some of it was done right here in Nairobi by our young people, very young people. Some of them thereafter reported that they had been damaged by what they had seen in the training materials. The dispute eventually went into litigation. Because of the work that was being given to them by this huge industry player internationally, it affected them. We need to be careful. Let's not just take anything that is thrown our way in the name of AI as a continent. And I'm sure you know the case I'm talking about. Are we willing to just throw anything at our young people for the sake of keeping up with technology? Let us protect our society. Let's protect our African youth. Because there's also a reason, apart from the cost of labor, there's also a reason why these interventions are not being deployed in the US or in Europe. So let us also be protective, viciously protective of our young people as we give them these opportunities. Africa will not be an dumping ground. It should not be. And perhaps it need not have gone to that level if we had the right control measures and mechanisms as Nairobi and as Kenya. We are uniquely, as a continent, well placed to lead the boom in AI, and I would say that. We have the technical expertise, as I said earlier, we have the techies from across the continent, we have the attitude to learn, we have the right vibe on our continent, we have a huge market, and I would pose it to say that for the first time in many of our countries, we have the right leadership that gets it. That's what I've been missing, just leadership that gets it. It does not need to be perfect, but they just need to get it. And once they get it, then they get the right people in charge of these deployments. None of this can be done alone. Our understanding of tech and deployment of it and our governance of its uses depend on discussions such as this that we're having. We here, speaking of those of us in positions of public responsibility, of private responsibility in your companies, in your startups, in your different institutions and organizations, the continent needs you. Yeah, you might feel that you're a few people here, but don't underestimate the impact of these discussions. We in Kenya, and I can say that with authority, take these discussions very, very seriously. We put a huge premium on the outcome of these discussions. We need you, we need our investors, our private sector partners, and our international partners to think with us so we can make this work for the people of Africa. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why I am so pleased to open this summit. It is a precious opportunity for the sort of discussion and exchange that has never been more needed than it is now. Remember the context I drew for you at the beginning of my remarks. Now that we're on the cusp of yet another transformation of the possibilities and perils of public service, we need to get it right. Asanteni sana, and welcome to Nairobi. Am I supposed to declare something open? Yes. It is open. I would wish to really spend more time. I think a few of you know today is a crazy day in Nairobi. We have the State of the Nation address by His Excellency the President at 2 p.m. And a lot of work has gone into it. I'm very happy. My deputy governor is tenacious. He told me that you cannot miss. And I'm really happy to be here. I know many of the people here, and let me tell you, you have the right mix of people to get things done for our country. Please enjoy Nairobi. Nairobi is a city that doesn't speak. Of course, I fight with the noise, but I also acknowledge in some places we should not, we should keep it going. I'm told you have a cocktail in the evening. Please, DG, if I can't make it, represent me and do whatever you know I will do. during the session, represent me and do not let me down. May God bless you and enjoy Nairobi.
Thank you, Excellency. I have to say that some of us came to work. Yeah, we've enjoyed it. Been here 8 years. I wonder when we will go back. So I have no doubts that I will stay in Nairobi. Thank you so much for your keynote and your remarks and insights. I believe that with that you've set the stage for us to have productive and great conversations for the next 2 days. I'd also like to announce the next steps, which are, we'll have a group photo, and then we will have the opening plenary, a panel discussion. But I'd like to apologize for an oversight, as we were supposed to have a special speaker earlier whose work precedes Africa and beyond. Where I come from, when the governor speaks, the session ends, and we move on to the next one, just like Jay-Z. But I also know that our governor is a Jay-Z millennial boomer, kind of. And I'm really sorry to put you on the spot, but I would like to kindly request for a few minutes before we go for the photo op. In this situation, it's hard to say no, but if you have to leave, we will absolutely understand that. If it's okay with you, we would love to have a few remarks from UN Habitat. Thank you very much. I knew it. As a Nairobian, I was so curious to hear your speech and your vision for Nairobi County that I actually skipped this. So it's been really great to hear from you. And at this point, I'd like to welcome the Deputy Executive Director for UN Habitat, Mika Manad. Thank you.
Thank you very much, asante sana.